Yeah, JT Martinez, that go-ahead home run that held as the D-backs fell 3-2 to the Mets. And let's just be honest, first 2 months of the season have clearly been a disappointment. They've been difficult to watch. Let's just be truthful. They're not a fun ball club to watch compared to what we saw last season. But what is positive, they are only 3-4 games out of the playoff spot here on May 31st. Let's remember, there are 3 wild card spots. So anything can happen. But, of course, Zac Gallen goes out yesterday and joining us from New York. Nice enough to join us on the road. Nick Piecoro from the Arizona Republic, AZ Central Sports. Nick, what, about 72, 73 degrees there? I mean, you probably got some unbelievable weather right now in New York.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to one of the players about that. Blaze Alexander was saying this is really the first time he's spent any time in New York. And I'm like, man, you got lucky. This has just been such a nice few days. Hopefully it stays this way the rest of the weekend.
Oh, geez. Well, let's start with what you can tell us at this point. I don't know if you've had the meetings yet with Skipper before the game, but what's the latest you could tell us on Zac Gallen?
We haven't heard anything yet.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure where that stands. I think everybody expects him to land on the injured list and miss some time. I would be surprised if they gave us a clear picture right away as to how much time he's going to miss. But if I had to guess, I'd say at least 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, these hamstring injuries, Nick. You think Alec Thomas. I think he was saying Zac Gallen last night. This probably feels like more of a strain than a discomfort. But you're right. This could be a 10-day, could be a 20-day, depending. But the hamstring issues seem to be the culprit for some of this Diamondbacks team so far early in the season.
Yeah, I mean, the one with Alec Thomas just kept lingering. It seems like he's getting pretty close to going back out on another rehab assignment and maybe being back soon. Hopefully he knocked that out of there this time. With Gallen, I mean, they've already called it a strain. I mean, 30 minutes after he came off the mound, just about, they announced that it was a right hamstring strain. So, I mean, that's probably all you need to know in terms of whether he's going on the injured list or not. I just can't imagine he's going to be pitching, 5 days from now. And he compared it to one that he had in 2021. He had a grade 1 strain. That's the most mild you can have. And I think he was back on the mound. It was like 15 days later. I mean, who knows, right? I mean, he didn't think that it was anything significant at all last month in Seattle. And, it bothered him during the Tigers start a few weeks after that. And it obviously popped up again last night. So, it's just, I'm not trying to say Gallen's not good at evaluating. It's just hard to know what's going on in your body when you're out there competing.
Nick Piecoro joining us here, Rocker Minuch, Fox Sports 910. Nick, as we, all of us talking heads and everybody that's in this industry is trying to figure out what is wrong with the D-backs, is you break it down, okay, pitching rotation hasn't been that bad. It really hasn't. But they're struggling with the hitting. Is there anything that's glaring to you, somebody that watches every single pitch of this team, that really is so much different than what we saw last year?
Well, I mean, you mentioned earlier before you brought me on, just that it's not the same team. It's not as much fun to watch. It's just they're not that same level of athleticism and aggressive on the bases.
Yeah.
It isn't that team right now. Alec Thomas has been out. That's some of it. Corbin Carroll hasn't performed up to what everybody expected. That's another big part of it. But then, I mean, you look up and down the lineup. I mean, guys just, Gurriel is always been streaky, but has been real bad, really, outside of the first couple weeks of the season. Suarez has yet to get going. Gabby Moreno hasn't gotten going. He doesn't look like the guy that we kind of thought was emerging in August and September. It's just a collection of things, just a lot of guys together that, when you only have one or two guys going good at a time, your offense just has trouble clicking. That's what it seems like to me. And then, something a lot of these guys are talking about, Paul Sewald was talking about it earlier today, just how it feels like they can't really get all three facets, offense, pitching, defense, kind of clicking at the same time for a prolonged period of time. And it's just kept them from getting on a hot streak. I think there is some truth to that, but it really feels more than anything to me like it's on the offense. And, I mean, you see that across the game really on a nightly basis. Pitching has just gotten to a point kind of the average pitcher has got really nasty stuff these days. It's just hard to hit. And I have another thought on like why it just feels like most years prior to the last couple, like there's usually like 7 or 8 teams that are kind of rebuilding. And that talent from those teams gets dispersed across to the other 20 or so. And it makes those teams better while those other clubs are kind of cycling up. But it doesn't really feel like there's that many teams other than like, the White Sox are obviously rebuilding. The Marlins are about to start that. Even like Oakland is not very good, but they have some veterans. They haven't like peeled everybody off their roster. Washington is trying to contend, like not contend, but at least put a decent product on the field. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll see some offense start to tick up after the deadline when some of these clubs have to inevitably decide they're gonna aim toward next year and trade some of these guys away. But right now, it just feels like there's just a lot of teams that are running guys out there on a daily basis that just aren't, good enough to be above average hitters.
Well, and that's the key. When you lose 5 out of 6, Nick, you only score 9 runs in 6 games. But listen to the presser for Torey Lovullo after the Rangers' second game. He addressed what you were talking about as far as the approach at the plate, putting, moving the ball one way or the other, because they were talking about the runners left on base and the runners in scoring position, how bad it was. And I don't know who it was that asked me. He said, look, we talk to these guys daily, every inning on the approach. So what's not registering, or is it just they don't have the talent right now to make that happen as they're trying to communicate to this team?
Well, I mean, it's hard. It's hard. I don't know exactly. I don't think that it's one of those things that there's necessarily an answer for. I think sometimes guys struggle. Sometimes guys get going, and sometimes enough of them get going at the same time that the offense is clicking. I don't know if this is just going to be a down year for some of these guys, or if they're just in the middle of it right now, and we're going to look up at the end of the year and they'll be fine. But look, like I was saying, I mean, if you watch on a nightly basis, man, it is just crazy the amount of good stuff that these teams are running out there on the mound. Night in and night out. I mean, it's a lot of mid to upper 90s stuff. It's a lot of nasty breaking balls. It's a lot of good changeups and splits and things like that. And it's just it's hard. It's hard to hit these guys when you're not feeling great at the plate, and you're pressing a little bit and you're expanding the zone. It's tough.
Nick, on the positive side, watching Justin Martinez come in and give you 3 innings, that kid's got some stuff. The 2 Ks. I mean, he can bring it. Talk to us about Justin Martinez a little bit. He really had a hell of a game in front of his family and at all.
Yeah, he's been a name for a long time in this organization. People have been pretty excited about his upside. He's just been a question since he came back from Tommy John surgery in the minors as to whether he's going to be able to throw enough strikes. We saw him come up last year and have his moments where he would dominate for an inning or two. And I remember he had an outing right after the trade deadline. I forget who it was. It might have been Tommy Pham, who said to the coaches, like, who is this guy? Why hasn't he been on this team? And when you see him dominate in those outings, you have the same thought. But then you stick around and you watch him struggle to throw strikes and hit guys and fall behind counts. And he was scuffling. But it seems like, I don't know what, but something has clicked, whether it's with his delivery or what. Maybe it's less reliance on his 4-seamer and going more with his 2-seam. But he's throwing strikes, and when he fills up the zone, boy, he is hard to hit. I mean, it is 101, 102 miles an hour. It is a nasty breaking ball. He's got a changeup that's pretty good too. I mean, if this is for real, that they might finally have like that dominant relief arm. That I'm trying to think of the last guy that this organization has developed as a dominant relief arm. Jose Valverde, but I mean, this guy's on a totally different level in terms of stuff. And Valverde had pretty good stuff, but this guy is just incredible.
He's Nick Piecoro, beat writer for the DBacks for the Arizona Republic, AZ Central Sports. Follow on X at Nick Piecoro, joining us from New York Mets tonight. You're back there. What is your go-to when you're on the road and you go to New York? When it comes to a nice sandwich and slice, what are you going with?
Honestly, I don't have as many go-tos in this town because I sort of just rely on the friends that I have out here that I'll meet up with them and just kind of trust their evaluations. There's so many good options. I end up staying in kind of random different hotels across town. So I'm not as much a creature of habit here in New York as I can be in other places on the road.
For when you're on the road, if you're not that close, do you find it difficult to get around? I mean, obviously being from out here, you have to drive everywhere. But I'm an East Coast guy, so I know it. Shu knows it, but it's all public transportation. So are you taking advantage of that? Do you mind getting on the train? Do you mind getting the subway? Yellow cab.
Oh no, yeah, I take the train. I take the subway everywhere I go out here. Yeah, I don't think I've gotten in a car yet since I landed. And Steve Gilbert with MLB.com rode the train in earlier, and he said he was walking off and heading here to the ballpark at the Mets stop, and he heard his name, and he turned around, and it was Corbin Carroll had ridden the subway with him. He was on the same car, so some of the guys are doing it as well.
That's awesome. You got to take it all in, man. Hey, Nick, we really appreciate you, man. Thanks for calling us on the road, man. It means a lot. Thank you.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me.
That's Nick Piecoro. Check him out on Twitter, Arizona Republic, AZ Central Sports. Nice enough to join us on the road. Yeah, it's very uncomfortable and intimidating for people that have not been to the East Coast and have been on the subway, because it can get pretty confusing unless you know it. Myself being born and raised there,
I mean,
you know it.
Are you kidding me? I took a friend a couple years ago to Penn Station for the first time.
Penn's awesome.
And the flipboards, when they tell you what track your train's on, he looked at me, he's like, what's going on? Like, what is happening? I said, nope, this is all going according to plan. This is just telling us where we need to go. But there's just a mad dash when those flipboards turn over and they tell you where you need to go. And if you've never been there before, it can be very daunting very quickly.
It is, because you're sitting there and you're waiting, because you can't just get to the station an hour ahead of time and know what track you're on. It goes up 10 minutes before, 20 minutes, right, Shu? I mean, and you're standing there, there's crowds just waiting for it to flip.
10 might be generous. There have been times where it's maybe 5 minutes before, and you have to run because that train's leaving without you.
Well, I got to tell you, when I was in Italy last year, at the Ryder Cup, it was trains everywhere. And I was so nervous because you don't want to miss, and you don't speak the language. You can't ask for help. I mean, you're lost. You're just out there, and I think it was like 5 minutes, and then you got to rush to get to that track. And if your ticket is not being scanned right, then you're screwed, and you can lose. You miss the train.
I'd be a mess. I'm so anal. I'm like, where's my Uber? Where's my timing?
No, I don't have any of that. It's all public. But once you're on the train, it's the best.
Yeah.
Sit back, read the paper, read on your phone. They got internet. They serve you. I mean, well, not serve you in New York, but you know what I mean. It's like the big ones.
Sure.
But I wish we had train system here. I would love to take the train to a game.
They're trying. I mean, they need to expand. They're trying.
What's a flipboard?
So you ever see you're at the airport and you see what time your scheduled flight is?
Yeah.
It's that, and it flips when it switches.
During the break, YouTube jacks the Penn Station flipboard, and you will understand what we're talking about.
And you've seen it in movies. I mean, it's just, Penn Station is just gigantic.
I can't imagine. I can't
wait. Going back in 2 weeks. I mean, I love it. I mean, there's just something, I don't know. It's amazing. All right. It's a Flashback Friday. And I decided to have some fun today. It is the 34-year anniversary of the first episode of Seinfeld. So I thought it'd be a good idea to put together, and I got some help from Jackson and Shu, that we go back, or these are my top 5 sports moments on Seinfeld, as well as some honorable mentions. And a couple of them, the reason why we're doing it today is, A, it's the 34th anniversary, but the Mets are 2 of the